My current mental health state and status and where I'm at. The truth of the base of the story and how this relates to PTSD, food, addiction, trauma. I say this because as I'm sitting going, okay, I have to, like with disciplines, get to the next thing, and I had to remove myself from people. I didn't do it at first on purpose, but I realized it's been a coping mechanism and then also a safety. So the first thing before this said, before you diagnose yourself with a mental illness, I do have a mental illness for the record, but what they say to be a diagnose, like the issues, make sure you're not around narcissistic, abusive people. Well, I was. And then the issue at the core is, who do you trust? Well, when those things are gone and you're alone, what do you do? And that's the cycle of really the addiction. So I look back, it's 2024 right now, but looking back at my videos, even from 2020 or 2021, in terms of my eating disorder, I would have said, like I really believed that, and I was at that time over my eating disorder. I came back, it goes back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which set the brain back in a PTSD sense. So everything we eat, there's a trigger. Also then understanding the disciplines and then where we punish ourselves. So even when I say eating disorder, distorted eating is the obsession with it at all and how that relates to the body and thinking about it. So I don't have an eating disorder. I don't purge. I eat healthier than the majority of the population too. So that's not a thing. It's the obsession and then starting to eat and then not being able to stop. So that was re-triggered when the opportunity to be looked at again so I was a professional spokesperson, fitness person, looking at my body, all that, but I gave that, like, okay, so when that wasn't the focus, my health knowledge, because I have a base of 20 something years of health knowledge, came in to play. The distraction, you just kind of like more robotic, do the things, okay, but when the focus came back to my appearance and my weight, and then also as the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the loneliness, that is what really triggered the depression and then the eating disorder. And that distorted eating though is the body dysmorphia and images. So there's the realistic things of, if I look at what my body was and is, to then like, okay, you gained weight, okay, your body changed, but it's the self-talk and then the obsession with it. So I understand this very well, and I've used myself as a guinea pig because of the PTSD. And truthfully, the what I'm out to do and prove, and the documentation is for myself, is really to educate the educated, because the damage that the educated did to my life
weight I was
is why I'm this way. I've never claimed to be
many
a doctor,
years ago, which
want
to be honest for me
a doctor.
makes me want to freak out.
They ruined my life.
However,
people in positions of power ruined my life. So even then you go into, okay, the coaching aspect. In my life, I've not had no knowledge. I was a professional fitness model, but a spokesperson. I was not the person. I would still go to the experts or the things for advice, but I was never able to really, in my career and in different things, I didn't do. I was a host of this shows. That's my skill is speaking and presenting. It's even how I got through college. I took marketing and business. That is more my skill. And that's also why, ironically, how I can, that it's also my coping mechanism. So that, and a lot of people do this. So going back to trauma, right? And you don't realize this, and this is where I got a diagnosis of what you call bipolar, which I can see makes sense. However, because I have this, is also wrong, but it's also right, but everybody has it. It's a scale, a spectrum. So as a child, and this is triggering, but that's, being raped and abused in a household, and then going to school and being everybody's friend, you don't even know you're being raped and abused. And then sleeping on the streets is safer than being in my own household. Okay, and then in a different household, I don't have any love or emotion, and there was no safety. So that at the core, with the traumas with the food, you don't learn healthy habits. I also had a mom who was severely anorexic and bulimic, and never ate with me, never taught me those things. And then I go to a father who then, you have to eat everything on your plate, and it's about the money and about the things versus, so there was no, it is very confusing. So at least, and I say this in sharing my story so that people understand their own, to look at things, because I can talk to people and then they had obsessive, or parents that were obsessive, with their own body weight, or look at like my, as a child too, like in the household, with my grandma and my mom, the whole focus was always around what my weight was, what my appearance was, sucking your belly, do da 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 da, and then when you're sexually abused, that adds a lot of extra confusion. I was very cautious never to do that with my own child, ever. And even very cautious not to talk about my diet, my appearance, any of those things. It never happened. And so I'm very proud of that. And a lot of parents need to understand that if you're having issues, so as I deal with these things, I never put that on my child. And that's the irony of a lot of different things too, is that when you're the person who's the public figure, or the who's been like, that it would look like a different way. But that was something I went the other way in being extra cautious, and that's, how food makes you feel. So in the teaching, in the process, I was very good at that. But when it came back around to, and it really was, and so in my lifetime, I always was in and out of a hospital with many different health conditions, autoimmune disease, conditions that they can't explain, blah, 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 blah. The time in my life I was my healthiest was when I believed I was loved. And there is something to that, right? I never felt loved in my whole entire life. I believed I was loved by my husband. And when I was betrayed, and I found out I was betrayed, that loss of love, that betrayal set me back in a different rhythm. And that goes back to when I'm looked at, or in the opportunity to here's a career, going back to your looks and your appearance, well, that spun me out. So it's the cycles of the brain. But that still comes down to the core of, you have to learn how to love yourself, and that's the base of any addiction. So, and I'll just share this openly, I after leaving, so I chose to leave my husband, and I say this from a psychology piece, also from a PTSD, because of my traumas, and I don't, yours could be different, but the giving up sharing my body, so I was only with my husband in the last, and then not, and choosing to take my body back and understand the process. And that's from the PTSD standpoint, the sexual traumas and the things, and then the extreme isolation, my therapy being my phone, because I don't trust anyone. It brings back a lot, because when you're eating something, or when you're doing something, or when you're having something that does relate hunger and sexual urges or needs, and as that hasn't, because I had to realize from rapes and trauma, an extreme high sex drive, but I don't, and I'm not judging anyone who does, but just my journey in the not exposed to any pornography, not exposed to having intercourse, not sharing my body. And so that spiritual side, and then how that connects to the food and the disorders, because that's where the punishment comes in. So I would believe that to be any addiction is when we're with ourselves. Are we our own best friend, or are we our own worst enemy? Well, I'm my own worst enemy. And that's what I had to realize when I review things, how my self-talk was. So the first things that I do is criticize my body, criticize what I look like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, there's another piece, right? So I had to let go, let myself kind of understand that. So that's almost the bipolar in my head of the different things. And that's what a lot of people would have, their inner mean spirit. But a lot of people do this to the rest of the world. I chose to do this we all do it, and I still do, but I'm aware of it. Being so cautious and it's so uncomfortable to sit, film yourself, talk about yourself, and then rewatch it. Because then you really know who you are. And I have to say, out of all the things I'm most proud of is that. And that's been the process, and that's what makes this, I said I've really been healing based on my own programs, the ones that went against everything that was told to me, so I could understand myself. And one day said to educate the educated, because of how badly they failed, and that is important to me. But that's a side note. How this links everything we eat, because if you really understand that, and then what our urges are, well, when we miss something, so say as a 40-year-old, going to be 41-year-old woman, and with an extremely high sex drive from whatever, who is totally great, because it's a trust factor. I don't want to share my body with anyone. Will that actually increase the cravings of food and takes me back to a childhood? Well, that I have to work through, because that's the emotions. Well, I don't know how to love myself. So you're alone, and that's any addiction. Okay, when you're spun out or have anxiety, that's the thoughts that come back from your past. That's what the demons are, is the past, is the people that were in your head telling you you're not good enough, you're this or that, or wherever your beliefs came from. So some people, if they've had love and support, right? In some areas they gravitate, and I just had to realize in my life I did not, right? I was, the people that were supposed to protect me were the danger, and still trying to get away from that. And living the way I've had to live has been, and that changes the brain because it puts you into a survival mode. So, and then changing the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, etc., etc. So I lost my health severely in the last little while, and I have to give myself more credit to what I've been through. I respect my integrity. That's what I'm most proud of. My morals, my principles. However, I still, that's the irony. It's like I'm not good enough when I'm not pretty. And I don't think I'm pretty. And that's pathetic. And I at least understand that. What a shame. And that's why I try to show myself in different ways and understand that. Because if I want to teach people you're good enough, and look in the mirror the way you are and see your soul, which that's the I know I in doing this process, I'm proud most of that. But if you're also made to believe you're not good enough, and that's where everything roots from, a low self-worth. So that is the core of it, of anything. And the mental illness piece is that disability that my brain turns off, that it's like I can do some things that are so exceptional. It goes back to that little girl who could go to school and be everybody's friend and blah, blah, blah. But that's an insecurity, right? If you're certain, because that's all it is. And I had to really understand that, but it's also why I'm still such a master of disguises. So what it would look like publicly, and I even had to take a break off social media because was my way of giving, but also my way of creating illusion and protection, because you don't want to look stupid. But my husband made me look stupid, and you're just, as a woman, you're written off for that. And it's difficult, and I still can't talk about that and where I'm left after. And I didn't believe I was even worthy after the amount of work I did and the things I did of deserving anything, because he made me believe that. But that's also what was at my core, right? So that's what I have to understand. That's why I've had to take a step back from that, is because it's the responsibility of saying, it's like, not all men are cheaters. I can't believe that. I have to believe that not to be true, because if a man said all women are cheaters, I'd go, well, that's absolutely not true, because I know I'm the most loyal, loving person, right? So, okay, why are we having a mismatch? Well, what am I attracting? Well, at my core, I don't believe I'm worthwhile. Okay, where does that come from? Okay, that's going through it. So this has been this interesting journey, and I realize, food is so much more. We have to eat. So I've never had an issue. I've never touched an illegal substance in my life. I was using marijuana as a coping mechanism for a little while, which I did decide to give up as well, because I really want to get to the base of healing on so many different levels. And that's what the next level. I'm in pain every day. I was first diagnosed with, or I started using it because of fibromyalgia. I still have that. I'm in excessive pain. The pain went away for a little while before in this process, but it came back. But that's just, that's also a thing that I go into to try to understand. But it goes back to then, okay, the core of that, the inflammation. So instead of trying to mask it with the marijuana or the different things, I want to understand my body. Okay, well, this goes into now the disciplines of food. And because I've had the distorted eating is because I've realized as soon as I'm restricted, because that's the irony, as soon as then that's what I want to do. And that's what a lot of people who haven't been under extreme control, maybe would have a hard time understanding that. But that's where, like, the core of eating disorders, because that's the thing you can control or hide or whatever. Okay, well, now it's out of control. Well, how can you control yourself and the disciplines? Well, I'm working through that. So there is the actual scientific component of, well, if you're eating certain foods to balance your hormones, that's going to make a difference. If you're eating, sugar is going to spike, But I had to let myself kind of go in that, but also the next understanding, well, these are the physical symptoms that you're having. This is, and it's like, you look at your real life, right? If one of the disabilities that I have is I urinate a couple hundred times a day. That's excessive. Well, there's also a stress component. What's going on? There's my health component. I'm knock on wood, the last hospital visit was a couple months ago that my body shut down my central nervous system. I've been feeling better, but this stress shuts me down. They can't figure that out. It's a severe trauma and stress. And that's, again, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that all relates. So people not understanding that. So I'm out to really, I'm documenting it, get people to understand it, my process. The next level, starting Saturday now and starting Monday, I want to say, hey, I want to try at least to have some disciplines, because I've never really properly followed something, because I go off in left field, because I get super anxiety over any type of control. But ironically, that's exactly what I need. It's like I need something or someone to control me. So that's, again, why I've attracted very controlling people, but that helped kept me in line. Well, the issue is trust. So I want to get back in my life of connecting to people, because helping people is that's what keeps me going. That's actually why I do the videos, is because I hope to help people, but I couldn't be in the position of coach or anything anymore because I'm not okay. So I'm hoping and then it changes. But I believe that's the path that everybody would have to take alone anyways. So the spirit, you'd have to really understand yourself. My situation just is extreme. And that's my PTSD. I can't be around people, because when I'm around people, I want to give them the best of me, and there's nothing left for me. So I'm learning, and that's the thing. But when I'm alone, like, are you your own best friend when you're alone? Well, no, I'm not. That's an irony, and that's like, how can I teach something that I'm not? And that's the irony of, and at the time in my life that I was coaching or empowering people or doing whatever I believed to be genuine, and I was genuine, but the universe, I believed, challenged me to go deeper. And I would actually challenge coaches on that, because I've really seen in this process so many of them haven't gone deep enough and are kind of where I was. And I'm hoping that I can turn this around and really prove it. And that's where you have to dig down and go into that discipline. But this is the documentation piece. So the next stage is I'm going to try to see and document this. Okay, well, what's going to happen now, being actually cleaning up your diet to follow something to see if you can heal, because the inflammation, the pain, the physical thing, all of that, because I have to have my base and my health set to then try to take on the next things, versus continuously self-sabotaging and punishing. That will lead to my death. I've been suicidal in my thoughts every day since 2020 after what the doctors did to me, and I work through that every day. And that's why I document these things, because there's times I don't think I'm gonna make it. It's that bad, but I fight every day. And my goals are really to prove what PTSD, because it's my only condition, is PTSD. And going off medication that was prescribed to me, I actually helped open that up. Am I against medications? No. But I'm against what they did to me, because it opened up my mind to be able to see and go through this. But not everybody would be able to go through this. I was just blessed that I started doing personal development at 13 years old, and my business is my art form, which has been my healing, which that's the base of everything that I do. That's saved my life. However, if I still have to figure out how to turn that around, but we'll see. I'm just following this path.